All righty. Today, I am really excited to welcome someone I've had the privilege of knowing personally, creating music and art with, and beyond our friendship, someone whose work I've genuinely admired as a fan for many years, Dustan Louque. Dustan is a Louisiana-born singer-songwriter, musician, producer, and visual artist whose creative life has never fit neatly into a single category. His music moves across genres and traditions, drawing from soul, blues, folk, rock, electronic music, and the deep musical landscape of Louisiana while remaining unmistakably his own. Throughout his career, Dustan has approached songwriting and production with a rare commitment to emotional honesty and artistic authenticity. Whether he is writing, performing his own material, producing, and collaborating with other musicians and artists, or exploring other forms of creative expression, there is a depth and humanity running through his work that has always deeply resonated with me. And that's what I'm interested in exploring today. Not simply the career of a musician, but the interior life of an artist. We're going to talk about where songs come from, creativity, vulnerability, inspiration, and intuition, the strange relationship between suffering and art, the changing landscape of the music industry, and what it means to continue protecting an authentic creative voice in a culture increasingly dominated by algorithms, commercialization, and noise. On a personal level, I'm especially grateful for this conversation because Dustan and I have had the opportunity to work together, and those experiences have had a meaningful impact on my own creative journey. But I also come into this conversation simply as someone who loves his work and has tremendous respect for the artist that he is. So today we get to move beyond the records and into the person, philosophy, experiences, and creative consciousness behind them. Dustan, brother, welcome to Conversations with Dr.
What's
West.
up, Wes? Yeah, nice to see you, Wes. Dr.
Yeah, man.
West, morning coffee. You
And
know what
as
happens over morning coffee with us, huh?
I know,
Don't
man.
start strumming your guitar.
Well, as
Um,
everybody, for people who are not just listening but watching, you're coming to us from outer space.
Man, like I told you earlier, my background in my office was a little backlit too much, and I was flipping around, and I saw this spaceship, and I thought it was kind of appropriate uh, because of some of those things that happened with us while I was watching Ancient Aliens during that weekend recording session we had. And I just thought it was appropriate. And the older I get, the more I feel like just an energy more than that's just passing through. And, I've been thinking about that, where songs come from and all that. And I'm sure we'll get into that. But the older I get, the more I feel like, and the more research I do on telepathy and all of the things, and telepathy and autism, and how those kids communicate in this place on the hill. It's amazing. They can learn languages on their own. From They're getting this information from places that we don't have access to. So that kind of opened my eyes lately, and it kind of got me thinking about telepathy and songwriting and where's I know I don't really understand. I just get out of the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But the spaceship, I saw it and I saw myself in it. I'm like, that's how I feel. So hopefully
I love it. I love it.
it
It's
comes
beautiful.
across as professional.
Well, I love it. So, man, I'd love to, Dustan, if I can, I'll just take a second and introduce some of the listeners to how I first found out about you.
Hmm.
And so, you know, in my field, psychology, being a therapist and doing that journey for a long time. But before that, I worked in record stores and CD shops from 16 years old to probably about 27. So
Hmm.
for a good 10 years, 10 plus years, I was in all these CD stores, and the amount of music and art that I consumed was deep. And I
Hmm.
became the record store guy. who I knew the underground, the cool, the hippish, I'd play records. It was like that scene from High Fidelity where
Yeah, yeah,
hey, watch this. And he puts on that
yeah,
beta band and people start coming up and going, hey, who's this? Who's
yeah,
playing?
yeah.
And he starts just selling the record. But your record showed up. And this is when I was 16. And it was
Hmm.
your record So Long.
Hmm.
But Dustin, I fell in love with it, man. I
Hmm.
was like, who is this guy? The cover fascinated me. And I actually, hold on one sec. This is the
Ah,
little sleeve that I actually
yeah.
from, and it came in this little promo
Uh-huh.
sleeve.
Oh.
It wasn't, and it just popped out of there. But
Hmm.
I was like, who is this guy?
Yes.
And all the music I would go through over the years, I'd listen to, but I get ear fatigue and I wouldn't want to revisit it except for your record.
Mm.
And it kept coming up and it kept showing up. So as the years went by, I'm growing and I'm doing all this, and I'm like, man, I want to go listen to that record again.
Mm.
And I went to search for it one day and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was like, where the hell is this thing? And so then I had to do a deep dive. I think I maybe found a couple tracks, but then I eventually found it again. And I found your music and it returned to my life at a very daunting time when I was feeling a
Mm.
lot of stress and pressure and running this center. And I reached out to you and we
Mhm.
connected. And I was, first of all, just dumbfounded that you responded. And then the
Mhm.
synchronicities abound. But I would love for you to kind of walk through, you know, not only that record, but also everything that you've done as an artist and a musician. Because what unfolded for me is I started to discover all of your other work that I hadn't, the record stores promote. So
Mhm.
when you're in that, you're getting blasted with just what's in the
Yeah.
media. But
Mhm.
when I went on a deep dive and listened to all your other records, I was like, this dude's a mother flipping genius.
Mm.
Like I was in the shower, man, and I'd be listening to just all your other EPs and records. And I was just like, man, he's making it's got this spark in it. It's so beautiful. So yeah,
Mm.
just maybe walk some of the listeners through your journey and what even
Oh,
brought you into music.
well, I'll try to go as fast as I can, but the story goes back to like way before I even played an instrument, to childhood tragedies. Like, and for whatever reason in this life I'm in, was exposed to pretty serious situations when I was young. I saw a kid fly off a motorcycle and die right before me. And, years later, Um, my cousin was in a factory explosion. I was 16, 15, 16, and he was missing for a few days, and they found him. And one morning, I'm still asleep at 6 in the morning. My aunt runs in the house screaming, runs in the room, and she's screaming and she's hugging me. And it's like, whoa, it's like, it was like getting slapped in the face. And I remember like going, stand outside before school that day and thinking to myself, I like, damn, like life, it could end, you know, quickly, it could just, this is a fragile thing I'm in here. And, I was in a little small town of 2,000 people, and my dad and mom worked hard. They were starting to do pretty good in business. And all I had, but in that moment, I remember thinking to myself, you have to do something. You have to figure out a way to get out of this, not to get out of the town, but to really express the feeling I had in that moment. It was horror, it was sad, but then there was a little glimmer, a little crack of joy. And it was weird. And I saw it. I saw it as beautiful somehow. I don't know how. And I didn't really, at the time I wasn't a musician. I was an athlete and I played football and baseball, basketball. But football was one way I honored that feeling. For the next few years, I went to college. Played football for a year or two. I had no business playing college football. I was small. Everybody was bigger, faster, stronger than me. But it was the way that I could at least honor that little kid who made this declaration, you know, to try to figure out a way to celebrate or to figure out this thing. And I quickly realized, my body was hurt. I quickly realized I needed to get out of, let that particular part of my identity go, which is something we need to talk about too. Identity, man. So then I let that go and I transferred to a different school, Mississippi State. And that's where I discovered an interest in piano and, eventually acoustic guitar and singing in the bathroom or maybe in the shower, but not really knowing if I could sing or not. But there was something about, like, right when I started piano, we were like just doing stuff on the black keys, very simple. I think it was Amazing Grace, and you'd play the same thing in both hands. They were trying to get our fingers. And I remember like tearing up in the piano lab by myself every night as the rest of the students in the other rooms were playing Beethoven and all this crazy stuff. And I was just, something hit the emotional core of me just playing that. And I knew I had found something else. And look, at that time, I didn't really think, oh, I'm going to make music. It was just, I love the way it felt. And those piano majors would see me in that room and I became one of them, even though I was just a beginner. They saw me in there practicing and it was just a feeling I loved. But years go by, I ended up in New Orleans and I ended up doing some modeling and that introduced me to acting for commercials and I got some jobs and I was making some money that way. And I'm like, well, maybe I could take some acting classes or go be in a few plays. Maybe I could get some roles. I don't love acting as much as I like music, but I'm not a musician. So that kind of led me to New York. I I went audition. I didn't even know how to audition at Stella Adler Conservatory of Acting, which is another key piece in my creative journey for finding confidence. And so I was doing that. That was like a 2-year program. I did it for a year, and that whole first year, I'm at in my apartment uh, with my little 4 track and maybe a guitar, and I think I bought a Rhodes keyboard. But meanwhile, I'm developing super confidence. I'm in New York City. The studios would overlook the city, and the teachers, they were from the old school, real integrity, and they were hard on me. I had
Yeah, brother.
this one teacher, Alice Winston, and she was old, and everybody was scared of her. And if she liked you, she made your life miserable. And she would pick on me and pick on me and pick on me in class. And she was around when Marlon Brando was in the school. That's why I went there because I loved those guys. I loved researched all the people I was impressed with, and I read Brando's biography when I was living in the country. And I told my dad, I was like, "Man, this dude is from the country. He's no more special than I am. Like, he's a country guy too." And my parents were always super open, because they had done the impossible. They built this business in a field, and they were super open, so that allowed me to flower in my own way. They were really, even when they didn't understand me, they would just go. So Alice Winston, uh, like I said, was around for a lot of great actors and stuff like that and artists. And these people weren't full of shit. You know what I mean? Like they were, I mean, you can't impress us with a pretty Instagram photo or whatever. It's like you got to put the work in, you know? And it was hard, man, because I'm an introvert. And to get up on stage, and I still battled it. It hurts me in music, in my music career. Um, I didn't have this thing, you know what I mean? Like I don't have an ounce of that in me.
Yeah.
And she would try to get it out of me. I'm on stage, and one day I'm doing something, and she's ridiculing me in front of 30 students in my class. I'm in the dark black box in the theater. He's ridiculing me, and I just went and sat down, stubborn. I just went and sat down. I'm like, I ain't taking this shit. Like, I'm sitting down. And because some of it, like this kind of thing, look at me, feels kind of corny for me. You know, it feels
Yeah.
like I don't like the feeling. And she kept going at me, going at me. And I was sitting in my chair. She's like, what is it, Dustin? What is it? What is it? And I pranced up on stage and I flowered and I mocked it. I'm like, this is what I'm afraid of. Look at me. Look at me. I sat down and she left me alone. And then always at lunchtime, we'd be sitting in front of the theater in school. She would pass by and all the students would just kind of freeze up. You know, they were scared of her. She's like, Dustin, come over here. So we walking down the street. She puts her arm around me. She's like, what you did in class, Marlon. You know? So
Hell yeah.
I was like, yeah, you know. But I got like not just that, but like other teachers, you know, told me like you're an artist, you're an artist. They just were they looked at me in a way that I'm like, I didn't look at myself, you know? And that was like enough confidence for me to go home at night and explore music as a non-musician. I mean, I took a few years in piano in college and could play some classical. But to be a songwriter, no. I mean, you know how it is when you first start writing songs. It sucks, man. You can't. Yeah, you can't get out of your own way. But but at the time in the late '90s, technology was getting better and better, and I realized I can go from this 4 track in the computer programs. You can have 64 tracks. You can record in a computer, and like my mind was blown. I'm like, I took some classes at the new school and went back to Seth and Donovan, who was the guys I was like making songs with on So Long. It was even before So Long. I'm like, man, guys, you're not gonna believe this, man. We got 64 tracks. We can make samples. We can make drum beats. We can move. We can cut and paste. We can make loops. You know, my mind is blown. You know, and so I ended up spending that whole summer, and the school cut us the class in half for the second year. That's what they do. And I got invited back, 16 people. And the director was like, Dustin, we love you. But when you come back, you got to leave your music alone. You got to get serious, you know, because it's like Shakespeare and like
Yeah.
Chekhov. Like it was a serious acting school. And so I spent that whole summer just was by myself in my little tiny apartment. I convinced my buddy Donovan Guidry from New Orleans. He was living in New Orleans because I would like send him. It was at the time we had answer machines at home, and I would send him song ideas. I'd leave it on his answering machine, and he would always. He's a hip hop head, and I mean he loved hip hop. And so when he came to New York, he would beat on the coffee table, and I would like be having ideas. And art, the song art was it was in my 4 track era, you know? And I think I just had like the first chords and that the whole song was just that thing. And then Seth came up with the chorus and that it just evolved, you know, over a time. And then by the time we got um so anyway, I'm not gonna get into
No,
art,
no. And if I can
but
interject real quick,
it helped me,
I
yeah,
just,
because
well, I want to say, what was the teacher's name? her name?
Alice Winston.
Yeah,
She's deceased now.
I just want to make the thread that one of my favorite films of all time is Dead Poets Society
Oh
with
yeah,
Robin Williams. And
Robin Williams. Whew.
you gave me the visual of when he pulls Ethan Hawke up in front of the class
Yeah.
and puts his hand over his eyes and he's like, go, go. And this like taking this extremely introverted young person, but pushing them to recognize the wealth of beauty, creativity, expression within, that without those types of mentors,
Hmm.
I think so many people would go, I can't find a channel for this and it's not okay for me to play or express.
Hmm.
And I saw how emotional you got, because that's the key thread where it's like having anybody go, this is beautiful. You need to express this. This is a part of you.
Hmm.
You and I talk about Carl Jung all the time,
Oh
and
man, I'm
integration
obsessed.
and individuation, and that looking at the parts of yourselves, the different
Hmm.
archetypal aspects, and being able to let it flower. And so I just love it, man, because there you were, like you said, an athlete,
Hmm.
and you had this existential moment where it was like, I need to do something with my
I
life.
had a enormous like weight on my shoulder.
Yeah. And
Enormous. You could feel it in so long.
yeah. And man, it moved you, Dustin. And I think the beautiful piece is you followed the thread and you kept going. And so it was like, I mean, I know so many people that won't ever leave their hometown. And for you to go to New York and be pursuing, and then so yeah, pick back up where they're like, hey, you got to drop music, you got to focus all on acting. What was going
Yeah,
on?
well, that summer I had had enough breakthroughs to, and talk about identity, man. Like, so I had gotten my parents to even like consider me that I was an actor now. That was ridiculous. And they never looked at me funny. Like I could call them tomorrow and tell them I'm going to be a doctor. They're going to be like, oh, they just like, I don't know, they just believe in me, I guess. But so I had like a year or two telling them I'm in an acting school. They came see me in performances, and they're like, see it, and like, all right, he's in a conservatory. And so then I remember making that call in the East Village. I was outside and told my mom I'm gonna make a record. I'm quitting school. I'm gonna make a record. I remember calling them, telling them I'm quitting football, and that was a big deal, man. Like they couldn't believe I was quitting football. Like because I had done so well in it. But it's like it's what you do as a kid, and that's how we expressed ourselves. Where I grew up, we didn't have arts programs, and we weren't cultivated in the arts. We had sports, and people worked in factories, farms. And that's kind of what I grew up in. It just so happened to be able to, go to college and move somewhere far away, far enough away to where I could go have that experience of rebuilding my identity and starting over. I think that was very important. I learned that was a great asset, to and New York was good at that. Like you move to New York, nobody cares, man. I mean, people are awesome. I mean, people think New Yorkers are rude. They're not. It's just so many people, and they're amazing people. I love them, but nobody cares. You're not going to get a pat on the shoulder on the street. Everybody's doing their thing. So New York was good for that. But anyway, we set forth into to, to making a record, and it only happened. Donovan Gidry and I, he moved. I had a 200 square foot apartment in East Village at the time. Talked him into moving, and he's like my brother. Had a futon, and we stayed the whole summer in that apartment. I would sleep one way, he'd sleep the other. But the key of having to be in close quarters like that, it is every night before bed, we're dreaming. We're dreaming. this is off, man. Like he wasn't a musician. He loved beats. He loved hip hop. He loved the business of hip hop. And he was the one in my ear saying, "You don't need to be a musician, man. You don't need it. Like, hell on, all we need is two chords, four chords. Like, you don't need it. Like, listen to what those musicians are. They're playing too much." Like, he was that guy for me. And he believed in me. Boy, he loved my athleticism. So he would always make me go play basketball. He was a great basketball player, and he'd make me come to the courts in Brooklyn when we eventually moved to Brooklyn. But that summer, being in those tight quarters, kind of produced the seed of so long, because we set the parameters of like all the things. There's two Cajun guys. We saw our culture eroding. Like, yeah, everything's changing, and it happened to all the cultures in America. We eventually become this American nothing, this bland, and we
McDonald's
were
and
pissed.
Walmart,
Yes,
McDonald's,
yeah,
Walmart, Starbucks, co-op,
and we were, yeah,
commerciality.
man. So we felt like two Cajuns on the moon, like we really did, like. So I'm getting emotional again, but
Yeah,
it's like the
brother.
responsibility of the death thing, of that little nugget of thing that's been pushing me my whole life, and then um now the cultural, like remembering my Cajun grandmother had died right when I moved to New York, and just the beauty, the resilience. She lost like two kids when she was young, and she had 11 kids, and they worked their asses off in the Louisiana heat in a tobacco field, and he was always happy and smiling, and just like all of that stuff was in there, and I wanted to. Yeah, I didn't know how to do it, but I had to figure out a way to honor that and put it in this record. So like, but stylistically, Donovan wanted to do a record label because he was a hip hop guy. He's like, man, and we had Jammy Land record shop on Third Street in the East Village, and it was all reggae and dub. And it was awesome to go in there because you could see all the artists on the walls, and it was like way beyond Bob Marley. I mean, up until that time, I knew Bob Marley, but you realize, like, man, look at Jamaica, dude. Like, there's so many artists, and like they all different, and it was really great. Like those singers really inspired me.
Man, like
But
the
that
the
is,
Gladiators, Toots and the Maytals,
yeah. And we
just yeah.
discovered Night Nurse,
Oh,
Gregory
dude,
Isaacs.
Gregory
I was like,
Isaacs.
what?
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that excited us. Like we were putting the elements together, and I like Portishead, Massive Attack. That's kind of in dub music. So I love dub, King Tubby and Lee Scratch Perry. And I was reading books on Lee Scratch Perry. And so I was bringing that part of it, and Donovan was bringing the hip hop, like loops and beats and sample kind of thing. And yeah, hip hop gave me a lot of courage in that time, because I didn't need but two, four chords, and you didn't have to be a musician really. It gave me enough courage to be like, okay, I could do this. And the always being the small athlete on the field, but having to be like, F this, we gonna do this. Let's go.
yeah.
So it's like bringing that into the art of what we were doing in so long. So long does have an edge about it. It's like we're swinging. Sometimes a little too hard, a little too much to prove, but we're swinging. And to me, like, and it was a 3-year process. So the early part of it, like, trying to get an old PC to do creative stuff was a nightmare. Trying to learn to write songs, sing, hear your own voice, and the computer's crashing, and like it was a lot, you know. And then having the nerve to go find people to work with in the city, you know. And Danny Bloom, who you worked with, that he mixed your stuff. Um, Danny was one half of Good and Evil Studios, and we needed so much help, man. We had good ideas, but it was terrible. Like if I played you what we had going on our own, it was bad. But we needed help, so we go there and Farik, that song right there is like, man, it was the homage to the culture, to the people, sweat in the field, for the Cajun, the tobacco beating in the field. That's why you hear church, you know.
Yeah.
I was trying, and I didn't have any dialogue whatsoever in music, so I would like bring pictures to describe what I wanted, but we did a few songs over there, like Whoa Now, Farik, and a few others. And eventually they were like, Danny called me. He's like, man, if we're going to continue to work with y'all, you can't come to the mix sessions. You got to let us just work. And all right, man. Well, I guess we're not working together anymore. And it was tough, dude. Like we were 2 years into this, and like Donovan's waiting tables. Like I'm like living simple, not doing anything but that, and painting apartments and stuff. So we wanted to be done, but we didn't want to like we wanted to it to represent us. And then we, at times, because we had no vocabulary and we weren't bringing that much to the table, Danny and Chris had to venerate stuff for us, you know. But eventually, so we were brave enough to go, okay, press pause on so long and go. And then we went on to do some of our best work. Not the mixes weren't as good as Danny and Chris's mixes, but the songs like Art, that's a little song that's been in my 4 track. Donovan was getting good at making beats. We had a NPC 2000. I don't want to get too into technical. I'd rather
Yeah.
stay into your area, um, but that's another point right there. Like standing, even when you're insecure, even when you have doubt, and even when you're tired, that integrity. You know what I mean? Like even if you don't have the facility to, you don't even know. Like we didn't know what the music was going to sound like that we were after, but we knew once we hit on something, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
When Donovan made that beat for, I had this old drum machine in the studio, and I was playing Art, and Donovan heard that drum machine beat. He's like, I got you. And he went home and he worked on the beat, and it's just like, and then Josh came in with the bass, and I had known Josh, but not really that well. I knew his roommate or whatever. But it exploded.
But it
It
was it
just
was alignment. And that's what I hear
yeah,
is like it was like you were following this path and the importance of staying attuned and aligned to what the vision was. And even when you can't see it, you
yeah.
can feel it. You can feel what
Hmm.
starts to pull out of alignment. And the integrity piece was going, no, it doesn't feel right to
Hmm.
go and not be in these mixes. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
right to move in this direction. And if everything's got to change because of it, we stay in alignment no matter what. We stay with the vision that we can't see. It reminds me of somebody almost being blind and having to walk and just feel. Or like,
Hmm.
those old did you ever watch that old movie Bloodsport with John Claude Van Damme? There's
Long time ago, yeah.
one time where he's fighting and he's training, but they throw something in his eyes and it blinds him. And so he has to go just to his intuitive senses to
Hmm.
feel what's right and what's not. And that
Hmm.
that whole time you're following that, man. So yeah,
Hmm.
pick up where so this record, I mean, you complete it and it comes
Hmm.
out and then it takes off.
Hmm. Yeah. So I find myself on Atlantic Records, because they let us have our label imprint on the record, and I find myself doing that, and quickly got to learn how to play live, and quickly play in front of a lot of people. Like Bonnaroo
And how old are
was
you?
I was 27, so I was older, but I wasn't really like a mature musician. You know what I
Right,
mean? I
right.
didn't grow
Yeah.
up playing music. I was older, and I handled it. But I remember one specific moment at Bonnaroo. There was like a cordless mic. I pulled it off the stand, and it was a feeling that was so foreign to me that didn't really feel right. And the crowd was out there, and there was something about that was so disconnected from the reason I got into the music. It was to express, to explore all these things we talk about, and then all of a sudden you're entertaining people, and I felt in that moment, I felt like I had to do that thing in class that I struggled with so much. It was like, I understand it now, but back then I didn't understand why. I mean, I remember like kind of bowing out of that. At one point, yeah, if I could have been a celebrity, I probably would have signed on for it until you're like, you see what you're losing. Like all of a sudden I'm playing this music that was an exploration, and this thing that I tapped into that ended up being joyous somehow. I don't know how it became joyous, but I figured out how to make it feel that way. I guess the beats kind of really help it. But all of a sudden, the containers that my art was put in, it didn't suit the container. Like all of a sudden, I gotta like entertain these kids at a festival, probably partying. You know what I mean? And it's like this is like some spiritual stuff to me, and then I'm like expected to run from one side of the stage to the next and do all the cliche things that the kids are doing nowadays. Like everybody's got the rock star moves and the hats and you know, like I don't, and it started to feel real outside into me. And I feel like I couldn't stay on my inside. I couldn't like, and there was also, maybe you can help me with this, a big part of it, why I did things to get dropped is I realized I saw people's love for so long, but I know what it was for me, and I know what I excavated with that. And I felt like I wasn't ready to stand in it, and I didn't know how to articulate the spirit of it. And it had a weight about it that shocked me. And I knew I had a weight, but I knew I needed to keep on working on it. You know what I mean? And I needed to guard that thing, and I didn't need to, because I felt the pressure of like playing Austin City Limits Festival and all these big festivals. And I played with other bands, and 6 months later they looked different, and they're like, maybe they played on the Tonight Show, and like they're evolving and becoming a whole different version of themselves, and their music is like kind of being manufactured for a certain situation. And I felt that happening to me too. I'm like, well, I got to make music for this crowd. You know what I mean? And that
Yep.
does, I couldn't stay tapped into my real muse. It wasn't me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I
Yes.
knew that I needed to protect, at the risk of losing, my career, like whatever our music career is now. I mean, I saw it firsthand, like the music business dying. I saw how it was going. And, but I knew that, um, I would have rather to be a nobody and to still have my creative integrity. And that's like how I heal myself.
Yeah.
And until like even today, like I just did a song a few months ago for my new project, and we did a batch of songs in Woodstock, and this material is like it's it's like one of the songs is called Under the Blood Red Sun, and it's me singing about that exact moment of tragedy. And at one point in the song I say something about answering the call on Grand Point Lane. I answered the call like of that little kid. You know what I mean? Like I didn't power out. I did not. kept on the path like all these years, you know what I mean? And certainly, music is like cheap now, and I don't know how to put myself out there, but man, if people find my catalog and if people are ready, there's some some health organic things there,
And man, Dustin, I
that
just yeah. I just want to say, like, it is so interesting from a spiritual, from a psychological, from an emotional, from a socio-cultural perspective, all these ways to look at it, but it's like the expression of oneself at a raw, intimate, vulnerable level is one of the most spiritually sacred things somebody can do. And then our culture wants to come in. You're right. I think about, record companies, and all of a sudden you become a commodity and you're
hmm
being sold. It's almost like a circus. Now you're a
well, this
circus performer. You
hmm
have this thing. And so whoever the circus people are, they're like, we're going to put you so that you can sell tickets, so that you can bring in this, so that you can feed this machine with very little care about the artists themselves
hmm
and what they're doing. And as you were describing it, man, I feel like we're all born childlike artist of wonder and creativity. And then as we go through the world, will tell you, well, if you're not quote unquote successful, then you need to stop painting. You need to stop writing. You need to
hmm
stop playing guitar. You need to stop making songs, because the litmus for success becomes, have you been picked up by a label? Have you sold this many records? Have you written this many books? Have you been published? And how sad that is to me,
hmm
because it's soul work. And that's
hmm
what brought me back to music, was like, I don't care what happens to this. I have to do this. I have to get
hmm
this out of me in
yeah.
this way. And one of the greatest gifts I got when I was making a little bit of music and sending it to some people, I sent it to a dear friend of mine that's a tattoo artist. And instead of coming back and being like, this is great. Oh my God, are you going to do this with it? Where are you going to go with your music? He just came back and said, I'm so proud of you for going on the inward journey, digging in and expressing this out and sharing.
hmm
And I was
yeah,
like,
man.
and that's the greatest compliment I could have ever got. And so it makes me think about your journey, though, Dustin, and just how hard that had to be to stay in alignment, but to also trust and go, I can't, I can't do this performance and not be true to myself. I have
hmm
to stay true to myself, and I have to keep, and I'm grateful for it on many levels. One, because I've gotten to meet you and spend time with you, but two, I wonder, there's so many artists that cared about and loved, but their art changed. And it changed for that precise reason that you mentioned. So I'm so grateful that you stayed in alignment, because all of your art has been so beautiful, and all of your music and creation. I would hate to think what the next 5 records would have looked like if you didn't stay in alignment and you started to move in a direction of making music for the large crowd or doing
hmm
whatever the record label wanted. Um, I think it would have disconnected you, and I think I probably would have hated the fucking records.
Probably so.
Because I would have felt the
Yeah.
disconnection and the authenticity.
hmm Yeah. I mean, it's still hard, man. Like I've gotten better. I'm reaching a point now where um, a burden I've had for a long time is wanting to. I guess we all want that hero's journey of going back to your hometown. I wanted to come back, and I wanted to come back and land on my people, and to help with the hurt and the tragedy, and I wanted that so bad as an artist to like make it okay, you know. And the thing is, with education, you change. I've changed. I mean, I'm still the same person, but that's one thing I finally had to let go. Is like I wanted to land on my culture, and I did in a sort of a way, but I'm really alienated, from where I'm from. musically. You know what I mean? Like I don't really land. You know, um, the way I would hope it would land. You know, because it's kind of weird. It's modern music. It's not weird music, but maybe to somebody back home who listens to new country or something. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna exactly land. And I think you have to be ready. You know, like my stuff has a tone about it that is it's not going to land on everybody. But if you're like ready for a certain kind of thing, you know,
I
nowadays
see.
we
Yeah, I see it.
nowadays we go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I see it as alchemical amalgamation. You're taking it's a gumbo, man.
Hmm.
You're taking all of these different influences, and what was sad to me in record stores is when the genres would start to get curated. So there
Yeah.
was this whole section called world music, and they
Hmm.
just throw everything in there, man. But when you look at Cajun roots and Zydeco and some of those components, I can see what you're talking about culturally, where it's like you were blending, but you were also
Hmm.
keeping your roots, but you were growing this brand new thing that,
Hmm.
if you're not ready to expand and see that, and you have a limited myopic perspective of it has to stay exactly
Hmm.
this, and I think you were doing a consciousness expansion of
Hmm.
where you came from and what influenced you. Cause I know you love Lou Reed and The
Oh yeah.
Cure and all of those elements. And then you mentioned Massive Attack and Portishead, and it's like, man, that's hard to find sometimes, people who can vibe with all of that. But I was right
Hmm.
there with you, where it's like I can jump 1 minute from Lee Scratch Perry to the next minute Tricky to the next
Hmm.
minute, just all over the place, and Gregory Isaacs. And so just that blend, but you were allowing it and you were going with what you felt resonated. And I still see that in your work today, in
Hmm.
everything you're doing.
Hmm.
And man, some of the tracks you're working on, I would love for you to kind of, yeah, keep walking on the timeline, even though I don't think things are
Okay.
necessarily linear. I
Yeah.
see your expansion. So you go through all that, and how did you keep tethered to music? Because I think after that, a lot of people would have gone, all right, I'm walking away from this altogether.
Well, I naively thought, well, I guess, after that, I'm like, well, I'll just make another really good record. I'll do the same thing. But, my people fell off, like Donovan, who made all the beats. Um, had it been another era, he would have been terribly successful. But, he wasn't a musician. Often he felt kind of on the back, waiting for something to happen. And there was just, we could all see the writing on the walls. Like the music industry was bad. Um, and Seth, the other guy I wrote with, I mean, they were kind of, he was mad at me, because I did things to get dropped, and I can understand. Anyway, so I ended up, and I had like inspired some artists in my community in Williamsburg at the time, Brooklyn. These two sisters called Coco Rosie. They ended up making music like in the freak folk world, like Devendra Banhart was in
Yeah.
that circle. So that was kind of happening at the time, and they were into so long, whatever. And I inspired them or whatever. So that kind of emboldened me to maybe I didn't want to make a freak folk record, but it emboldened me to like I had a laptop now with a Mac Mac laptop that was made for creativity, a lot less breakdowns and all that stuff. So I made a little travel record called Luke the Drifter, and it's kind of combining like old country, reggae, freak folk. I was watching a ton of Fellini at the time, and a lot of my artist friends love this record. Like my friend Mac Primo, who's a filmmaker, that's his Christmas record. He would listen to it at Christmas time. But you know, some records you feel like you miss on some stuff. And I was working, I had this awesome Jamaican rhythm section in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. They really wanted to work with me. And man, I would go in there, I would go in there and be like, okay, you you play reggae. I'm gonna play country. Cause I had gone home and my old uncle was like drumming country. And I'm like, man, that's just like a reggae rhythm, but just open chords. He's not muting it. It's just like boom, bang, boom, bang. Like that's all country strumming is. So I went back. I'm like, hey, you guys play, give me a one drop reggae rhythm, and I'm just gonna do this. You know, I felt like the little weirdo white dude, you know. But they were like, yeah, go ahead. You're playing like you're people in New Orleans. I'm like, all right, well, let's mash this up. You know, so we did that, and there was no record deal. You know, it was an odd little record, but I continued. You know, maybe I sold a song or two to film. You know, that was enough to keep making records. Um, at this point in time, I was traveling a lot. Like I went to Paris, Jamaica, Canada, and just trying to. I guess I thought somebody was going to save me. Somebody was going to call and say, "Hey, I'm so and so, and we want to manage you, and put you on a big stage, or, whatever." I thought, you know, but I guess social media was starting to come out slowly. I guess it was MySpace at that. Um, and then right around that time, Josh and I, Josh is my bass player, Josh Werner. And speaking of Lee Scratch Perry, who I used to read books on, Josh traveled and toured with Lee Scratch Perry and produced a record for Lee Scratch Perry. So all these things were just coming full circle, you know. And so, but Josh and I, when we first went on tour, they're making so long, we would listen to the Smiths in the band, Depeche Mode, the Smiths, Blow Dive. I mean, just like Radiohead, there's so many other kinds of music that we love. And it kind of like reminded me, like, man, I used to love this music so much. And it's such an important part of me making it out of the country, like going exploring New Orleans. And like that music was like little roadmaps to a different form of yourself, you know? So, and it reminded me. So Josh is like, we realized that we both loved that music. And he had this project called Royal Vagabonds that he was just starting. And I was becoming more of a guitar player. And I introduced him to some of these songs that I was writing. He's like, damn, dude, like, let's do it. And I'd seen this drummer play, and Josh knew him. So we made that record. That was in '08. And, in that time too, it's like post 9/11, after we all saw the buildings fall and talk about another life reality and seeing humanity gather in Union Square, like all of New York stopped and like looked each other in the eye.
Yeah.
It was a wild experience, and showing your ID and getting below 14th Street and walking in a ghost town with smoke, and it was crazy. So, in my perfect mind, I guess, as an artist at that point, and this is like well after so long, you know, like the country would be like, we're evolved citizens, and we are declaring an end to war. We are not going to retaliate. We're going to turn the other cheek. Like there's some part of me is like, I wanted us to be a great example in the world too. I don't know. I guess the history books that were whitewashed and polished for us make you think that we're a different version of who we actually are.
Mm.
We don't have blood on our hands, and we didn't do this bad stuff. But so so I began to like really see who we were, and that record's kind of, and it will come out at some point. Me and Josh, we never put it out because we both went through the record industry stuff, and I guess we were kind of waiting for somebody like some tasty little underground record label that might want to put it out or whatever. But we're gonna put it out soon. But some really nice songs, like post punk, new wave, Americana,
Well, was that the era
alt
when
country.
you did Wildfire? Was that
Yeah, that's
oh,
that era.
which
Yeah,
dude is
that stuff.
so killer, is
That
so
stuff.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a great band, man. Josh and Dave Burnett and me, and yeah, just a good band. And it was the end of that Williamsburg artist era, because our friends TV on the radio were probably the one of the tastier bands that got big from our neighborhood. Anyway, so we played a few shows. Nothing was happening, man. No, nobody's coming to save you anymore. Like it was quickly becoming how many followers you have, or it quickly became what it is now. Like now, if you got followers and you cute and you got eyes on your stuff, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have song. Like nowadays, like people are huge playing stadiums, and I still haven't heard a song. Like I don't even know what the music sounds like.
Yeah.
It seems like it doesn't even matter.
Or you get a
It's a,
15-second loop clip that
yeah,
gets an earworm,
yeah,
and the
hmm
earworm explodes, and then people are like, ah. And a
yeah.
lot of times, the saddest thing to me is people will know whatever the 15-second clip or earworm is, but they have no idea who made it.
True. Like a lot of
And then
people
I've
don't know
always
who the
been the
artist is.
underground dude. I've always been like in movies, in anything on TV, in commercials. I'll be like, oh my God, you know who they're playing right now? That's 07. That's Bonnie
Yeah,
Bear. That's this. And like nobody knows, man. It's all
yeah,
just
yeah.
become this commercialized thing. But I've always been able to I remember with some of my friends, I was early listening to a lot of Daft Punk, and
hmm
then Kanye West sampled it. And the thing that would always trip me out is people would be like, this is so and so, and I'd be like, no, man, it's sampled.
It's
That's
that.
fucking Daft Punk,
Yeah,
man. Or that's Sam
yeah,
Cooke. And then I'd
yeah.
get a lot of the, hip hop, you saw the sampling kind of happen. But dude, I'd love to talk some about this journey, because when I went back into your catalog and your work, and I'm looking at your discography, you mentioned Luke the Drifter, and then you made another album, Campo Santo, and
hmm
then Along the River Road. But when we get to 10/27/13,
hmm
Luke, Dustan,
Yeah,
oh
really?
my gosh, man. I mean, all of them are hitting me in certain ways, but they're so beautiful. But I remember listening to 10/27/13, and two in particular, Only a Love Everlasting,
hmm
and then Won't You Let Me Love You, and or
hmm
Won't You Let Me Love. Um,
hmm
but just or Make Me Love Again. But I remember we talked at one point, and you said in that time of that album, and one song in particular, you were reading some Eckhart Tolle and a
Yeah, that
newer.
was "Won't You Let Me Love." Yeah, that was during
Yeah,
the pandemic. During
yeah,
the pandemic, one beautiful thing that happened because of so long. To rewind a little bit, like in 2014 or so, because of technology, because of social media, and I put another website up, and people started writing me, and I would get like a few a month, like just beautiful letters of people professing their love, and you know proposing to their wife, or having the first date with their wife, and rocking their kids to sleep. I mean, I got so many stories, and it was enough to give me energy, because it's not always easy. You know what I mean? It's not always easy. I'm always working other jobs. I mean, I own a house. I mean, I'm not struggling. I have a nice lifestyle, but I got to get it. I got to work to keep it going. And now I'm like working extra to pay for mixes, and like I'm continuing to produce music and put it out there and try to find a way. Um, but people would write me, and it gave me a lot of energy. And so the pandemic happened. There was a big oh shit moment for all of us, especially for artists. And my wife is a piano teacher, so she quickly went to Zoom. She's like, we're going to use this Zoom, and I'm going to teach online. And she's like, honey, we're going to play a show. I'm like, no, honey, no, no, no. Like, yep, we're going to play a show. And I didn't even have all the technology at the time. We played, the sound goes into the laptop mic. It no telling what it sounded like to the people. But we would do it on Sunday nights at first before we got the technology, but Sunday nights, and we would greet everybody because of Zoom. Like you could see everybody that's there, and we would stop and we'd go up and see like what you eating or what you drinking, and everybody would be dressed up. It was a cool thing. And eventually I got the right technology where I could, you know, come off the board and they can hear better, and it got really good. But through that, and through touring, playing in people's living rooms and barns and yards, I developed really great relationships with all the people that would write me. Not everybody, but the people that hosted shows. And one in particular, this guy, Jeremy Krause and Jamie Krause in Rhode Island. Um, Man, it's the best feeling when you like plan a show and you like walk across the room and you see this person like looking at you in such a loving way. It's ridiculous. And they hug you. It was nice. But Jeremy over the years and Jamie have been such big um, contributors and supporters. And Jeremy's like, man, what would it take for you to make a record? Right now. And I said, I could probably do something for around 10 grand, probably, and in an 808 drum machine. Like I need an 808, and Behringer just knocked it off. And you can get one for two something, $300. So that was the beginning of that record. And Won't You Let Me Love is a leftover beat from So Long.
Hmm.
So there was, and Only Love Everlasting is a leftover beat. I had been having those. I never knew what to do with them. Immigrant, leftover sample from So Long era. Never knew what to do with it. And 2016 comes, and the absurdity of what was about to happen politically just lit me up, man. Lit me up. So that song was 17, 18, kind of starting to work it. And um, yeah, and then Only a Love Everlasting, yes, yeah. I used to think, I was naive to think that I could change our politics or change or heal that stuff. You know what I mean? I used to think I could make the perfect song and make a difference. And I guess I still do, but I try to focus more on internal now. Whereas maybe a song like that is like trying to infect the people with some sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that record, man. So I used the 808 on all that, and yeah, I kind of went to that the other day. I wanted to hear that. There was a song, "You've Already Gone Too Far." A friend of mine's dad had
Beautiful.
died, and then I came in the other room and I'm writing. I didn't know I was writing. I was just singing it. That's the weird thing, dude. Like sometimes it just come out. Margaret's like, "What is that?" Like, I don't know. It's for Amanda. Her friend Amanda's dad just died. Yeah, man. It's a gift I have. I don't know. And the weird thing, I sent you that song the other day.
Beautiful, by the
It's
way.
it's for a film that we're working on. We're doing a whole soundtrack, Josh and I, for a film, and it's all in the So Long style because that's what the director he wants. So Long stuff. I'm like, we got it, and me and Josh are just delivering. But that particular song, I was reading a lot about telepathy and how we are this spirit and our bodies will are just temporary, and the spirit, this thing, is going to continue on, and I love that idea. And I love like being able to commune, just like, like these autistic children do. They meeting their friends out on the hill, like just in their own bedrooms, communicating with other people in a way that we can't understand, and I'm super into being open to what I don't know and what we don't see just yet, And so I had this verse written with a song called what's it called?
Time and place.
Time and Place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had the first verse, had a nice flow to it. And sometimes if you have a nice flow, you just repeat it in the second verse and change the lyrics. But I was on an improv, and I'd been thinking about telepathy and the spirits and communing and like how they're all there. Like these things are always, but melody, just trusting the melody and just kind of, I'm not a jazz musician, but it's the jazziest, the most improvisational thing I can do is when I'm writing like that. And Josh sends this beat and the music is so good. It's inspiring. I'm like, put it on, put the headphones on. And I just like, I got to the second verse and I could feel it. It's like this thing is taking me. And I'm like, okay, this was like the first verse, but all of a sudden my instincts were going here and going there and going there. And this thing just took over, man. So then it started to feel like um, I was like the voice of the many spirits that have lived and died. And so I know it might be kind of woo-woo sounding, but not to
No.
you,
Yeah.
but from my side of things, it's cool, man. It's a hard thing to stay out of the way of too. You got to like just let it go,
Yeah.
let the melody out, and then and then sit down with pen and paper after and really translate what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, Like sometimes words, like whole words, and I got to go look them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I know the meaning, but not really. Like why did that come out? What is it? Does this fit? Like, oh my God, does it fit? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that'll happen. And I'm like, been doing this stuff for 25, 30 years. And still haven't figured out what that is, but I'm intrigued. I love it. I
Yeah.
love that I could I'm always listening to Carl Jung and trying to understand the makeup of us, our darkness, our
Yeah.
light. And I'm not afraid, just, we talk about darkness and Carl Jung talks about, you know, not running from your darkness and looking at it, you know what I mean? And to find your true self. And I believe truly my work, my music does that. You know what I mean? It will not just give you the light. And I think a lot of music nowadays is just trying to be the light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they have no journey really, other than wanting to be in the light.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and that's what we get nowadays. You know what I mean?
And that's the
It's like,
spirit it's coming from, is it's not coming from a place of exploration and true um examination. It's coming from this wanting, this desiring, which almost brings us back to
mhm,
that Buddhist piece,
yeah,
which is the Buddhist said desire is the root of suffering. It's the
suffering. Yeah.
wanting and the yearning rather than
Mhm,
the accepting and looking at and exploring and excavating almost.
mhm.
And
There's
yeah, go.
but you said we suffer because we desire. The last song on Campo Santo, I'll say that. I'll sing about that. Like we
Okay.
suffer because we desire. And it's not a hit song or anything. It's just the end vibe of a record. But I believe that. Like we suffer because we desire a different outcome, or we desire the past, or we desire the future, and we're scared of the present moment, you
Yeah.
know? And you know how I know we're afraid of the present moment? everybody's like this everywhere you go.
No, I know,
This thing right here, man. Whew,
I know.
dangerous. It's a great tool and a dangerous tool.
And massively addictive, and
Hmm.
consumption, and disconnecting us from ourselves. And I like how Eckhart Tolle talks about it. He says there's the natural world, the birds, the bees, the
Hmm.
trees outside, the clouds, nature, mountains, and then there's the human world, everything we've
Hmm.
kind of created, which is like, AC, heat, chairs, roadways, cars, and then there's the digital world. And
Hmm.
he says, where we're seeing a lot of people, especially kids, is just living in the digital world. And I think as the
Hmm.
advancement of AI and virtual reality kind of grows, you're going to see more and more people spending exorbitant amounts of time in the digital world. And he says most of the healing's in the natural world, and
Hmm.
most of but I want to bring it back real quick, Dustin, because everything you mentioned, you know, what I love about you and what I admire so much about you as a human and a soul, but also as an artist, is there is never a point in time where you are not taking what you are living and experiencing psychologically and emotionally and environmentally, and pouring that into your artistic expression. And
Hmm.
so that to me is like each one of these, because it's a felt sense vibrationally when you listen to music. And I think that you're right. I think we're going to see more of a spirit science start to grow, where there's a neuroscientific biochemical recognition of everything that's happening in energy and chakras and meridians, in our ability, whether it be kinetically or telepathically, to connect with one another. um, but the piece that I think is so beautiful is behind each one of these records, behind all of your art, is these rich stories about where you were in your life, what was going on. Um, and who was I listening to it? Rick Rubin, which of course,
Hmm.
people can goof on him and make fun all the time. And there's all these memes, and he's like, I've never played an instrument, and you just hire me for the fucking vibe. You know what I mean? He's like, but he wrote a beautiful, cool
Yeah, the
book
book is
where,
good. Yeah.
yeah, but he said at one point, he said, "Look, man, it's your diary.
Hmm.
Make it like it's your diary." Would you
Hmm.
ever go back and look at a page of your diary and be like, "This is stupid. This is
Hmm.
bad. This is not good"? Or would you ever spend years trying to perfectly curate a page of your diary so that when other people read it, they see it in this way? He said, "No,
Hmm.
timestamp it, make
Move
your
on.
art." Yeah, make your art, do your expression, do it authentically. And man, that's what I appreciate about you, brother. And so
Hmm.
I want to, I know we got, maybe about 15 more minutes. But I want to talk to you about kind of where you're at right now and the current project. So you released a song called Chimes Toll,
Hmm.
which, dude, I'm always, every time
Yeah.
you drop something, man, I'm just like, man, it was amazing. And I listened to
Well,
it
that
multiple times.
that was written from the perspective of a friend that we lost a couple years ago. He had cancer for a long time in his life. Margaret and I were friends with Gary Lee and Paula Lee in New Orleans, and we were there for him, and really beautiful because every time we saw him, we thought it was going to be the last, and we had some really beautiful times because of that. And they had these chimes that we really loved, and they sent us some huge chimes to hang in our yard, engraved, to our earth angels, Margaret and Dustin.
Mm.
And they had the chords on the back or the notes. And then I sat back there with my guitar, and the song came really fast. So that's what that song's about. It's about some of his experiences. Um, yeah. So I don't know. And, I've been working on writing lighter stuff, and I do write some light stuff. But it's not that that is heavy. I guess it's about a heavy topic. I don't know. We were on a boat recently, and Margaret's cousin was like, "Man, I love that song." And the kids, were playing DJ on the phones and playing like all of their dad's number one great hits, Eagles, and all, all the hits of the eras, And then all of a sudden they put that song on, and mind you, one of Margaret's cousins is sick right now, and it's serious, And the song is kind of serious. I didn't really feel comfortable with them playing it, and sure enough, midway through, the girl was like, "This is depressing. I got to turn it off." And I understood it. I mean, I wasn't offended because the content is, and her dad's real sick, and it's just it probably wasn't appropriate. But anyway, I don't hear it as, away from if your dad's sick or whatever. Like I don't hear it as necessarily a song or anything. I mean, the material is about a beautiful time.
I've always been, Dustin, the guy I played DJ for a lot of my friends over the years. I had an old Ford Explorer and I ran it, man, and I'd play all different stuff, but I'd say 90% of the time people would be like, turn this off. Whatever I was getting, because I was either going avant-garde, Jamiroquai, funk, eclectic, or I was putting on some bizarre, tricky or underground stuff. But like for me, man, it immersed in a world. And I think what you said earlier, it's like a lot of people are trying to curate a mood. And a lot of people, I think it speaks to kind of society and culture in some ways, man, where people want to stay in the light and not explore all aspects. But
Mhm,
I think the exploration has got to be all of it, man. The pain, the
mhm.
anger, the sadness, the fear, the resentment, the frustration, the beauty, the ecstasy, we are
Uh,
here to feel everything. That is the human journey and the human experience.
Dude, I think the way to really get to your true self and true confidence is to look at all those things, man, to go through it. And they're there for you. We talked about this before, your challenges are little tools that are gifts for you to, to find. And it's up to you to have the work ethic to get to it. And I had harder because of maybe I couldn't stay on a label and I couldn't be a yes man and do what they wanted me to do. But the most important thing to me was to be a normal, everyday living human being to get these things I write about. Because, if you go look at Bob Dylan, he's like, man, I don't know how I wrote those songs. I can't do that anymore. And you know why? Because he's a god. That people made him into this genius god that's untouchable, and he's got to go live in his house by himself. And he's got to peek outside the curtain, and like people are pacing around trying to see Bob Dylan. That's why he can't go to cafe. He can't live a normal life. And that scared the hell out of me. Not
Yeah.
that it become famous like Bob Dylan, but like, you know, you could lose a side of yourself when you become this cartoon kind of superhero rock star. I just despise that world. I mean, I don't despise Dylan, but I despise what they do, you know,
100%.
to
Well,
people.
and the culture is built upon that. There's a beautiful documentary called Happy, and it goes around the world.
Hmm.
And have you seen it?
Think so, yeah.
And so awesome. And just it compares and contrasts different regions geographically, different
Hmm.
cultures, and what actually makes people happy. And then they go to our Western culture where we have been told fame, material gain, adulation, power, image, and ego, these things are going to save our souls, bring us beauty and bliss. And then it's like you really do go to Hollywood, and what you see is people who have attained all of that and are
Hmm.
deeply, deeply alone, depressed, suicidal, overwhelmed. And so, yeah, man, I think about this idea of becoming a rock star and
Hmm.
becoming an idol, and how detrimental that is for mental health. You don't see many people make it through that journey and not come
Hmm.
out severely scarred with how they see themselves, and back to ego and identity. And I know for
Mhm.
me, man, in reaching out to you and finding that record when it was time for me, and I was like, I want to pour more energy into my music. And I'm sitting just playing my old nylon string, but some songs are coming, and I'm like, I'm gonna really do a little record, do an EP or something. I had a couple people that were like, "Hey, man, we can get you in this studio with these really good mics, and then we can market it like this. And you're already a psychologist, and so we could use this platform to do this." And all that kept coming up for me was, "Man, this is my prayer. This is sacred. I want to make an album that I'm so proud of that I can share it with my family and my friends, and then I feel really proud of myself." So when I started to look at who I could record with and work with, I
Mhm.
had to find somebody. It was like a painter. It was like I was going to go make my own painting, and I wanted to train with somebody who had made a painting that I loved. And
Love.
everybody that was offering it, I'd look at the paintings and be like, "I don't really fucking like that painting. I mean, I don't want to hurt your feelings or nothing, but I don't, you're saying you can do all this stuff, but you haven't made a painting that I love." And then I was like, man, I wonder if Dustan, and then I reached out, brother, and I'm just so grateful. But I'll tell you this, I'm grateful for what you've taught me as an artist and a musician, and that aspect of what I explore and do. And like I told you, the little EP that I put out, man, I could care less. I'm blessed. I'm doing my gig, and I make feed my family from my journey as a therapist and a soul worker in that way. But man, what you taught me about, you took care of my art, and you took care
Mhm.
of the spirit behind it. And then
Mhm.
I got to have this beautiful artistic collaboration. And so I'm just forever grateful for you, man, and our
Oh
friendship.
man.
And and then, dude, all the, I have this one moment where, of course, you came over for a weekend. We had a few days to work together, but you were watching Ancient Aliens, and
That's right.
that wove in. But then there was one moment, man, where we were making Rebel Lion, and you got down on all fours, and you were like, "It makes me feel like a lion, man." And you, and you started walking around, and I was like, this
Ah.
dude's fucking awesome. I was like, let's go, man. But just that I felt that part of you that was younger, that was, exploring and not afraid. And I don't think a lot of people make it, past their freaking 40s
Yeah.
and still have the cojones to go, I'm going to play. I'm going to be creative.
Like,
I'm going to channel. I'm going to open myself up to whatever
uh,
needs to move through me and put it into the world. And you're right. Now with social media, man, and everything becomes commoditized and packaged. And the saddest piece for me that I'll say is I'm working with so many young people that'll be like, why would I go play guitar? Why would I go play piano? Why would I
mhm.
go write when AI can do it for me? And oh, it's a dagger to the heart, because what I recognize is, sure, man, I could go have AI cook up something on a freaking piano or on a guitar, but what I want, what'll be taken away from my soul, is what you felt when you were playing on the black keys
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that piano room, and you got that channel to spirit, and you started to cry, and you were like, whatever this is, I don't want to stop doing this.
Yeah. Vibrations.
Yes.
I think about that. Like, if it was a vibration that sent me on a path. If if the kid doesn't try, like, and does the AI, they will never. Not. I think that's why I cried earlier when I started talking about the acting teacher, because it's like they gave me little doorways, and if I hadn't had those little doorways, I wouldn't. I mean, certainly a lot of work years later, 25 years later, I could feel a little better about who I am and feel like uh, sort of done it. I don't know. But man, what would it be like if I hadn't opened the door? Who would I be? Like, would I be consuming, be living in a mansion with six? lovers. You know what I mean? Like, and you know what I'm talking about? It's like, everything is outside of me, and like I don't have to consume it. You know what I mean? This is what we're living in, man. I would have to posture. We live in a posturing society. Our leaders are just posturing as great leaders, making big sweeping statements, but big movements that I was afraid earlier on stage. That thing.
Yeah.
That's what we're living in, dude. People are performing. You know.
It makes me think. I want to pull it up real quick because I want to make sure I get it right. And it was a Carl Jung quote. But as you talk about it, it's like what came up for me is you wouldn't know yourself. You'd be
Mhm.
performing, you'd be a mask, you'd be this, you'd care more and you'd invest more energy in how the other sees you than
Yeah,
how you see yourself. And
dude.
that journey, so Carl Jung says his quote is, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens.
Yeah, dude. Exactly. I mean, what a way to end. And I feel like lately, on a perfect day, I feel okay. I feel okay. Like I don't need to be seen necessarily because I see myself.
Mm.
Of course, it's a daily practice. It comes and goes. But on a perfect day, feel okay. Feel like
I love it,
I'm
man.
doing it.
Can I end us with one more, because this is what happens when you and I vibe out,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
But have you ever heard a poem called "The Man in the Glass"?
I don't think so. Maybe.
This is by Dale Wimbrow, and if I may, I'll read it real quick. It says, because I think you're a perfect example of this, brother. It says, when you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and gets pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass.
Yeah. Amen.
Dude, I think about that one a lot, but it's like, I mean, those are the options. Those are the choices, you know? You go try and put some persona together that gets you worshiped and loved by the rest of the world for what you've done or created, and it's inauthentic and not true to who you are, or you stand at the edge of the full moon and you express and you channel and you put out into the world whatever is moving through you honestly. And it's like, man, no matter what you do, somebody's going to think it's awesome, somebody's going to hate it, and somebody's not even going to notice, but you're the one. And when you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
real and what you've put, then you can be proud of it. And Dustin, I'm just so grateful for you, brother.
yeah. I'm glad we met. It's
Yeah, man.
amazing. It's amazing what we've been able to do. I love your record that we made, and got a new friend, and I'm gonna go for a car ride. In your Buick. Is your Buick still running?
No, listen, man,
Ah,
I got rid of the Monte
you got
Carlo
rid of
and
it.
then I got rid of the Buick. And now
Okay.
I'm pushing a 2024 Chrysler Pacifica minivan.
All right.
But
Gangster, real gangster.
the sound system, dude, is
Nice.
I'm still a
Good.
rebel lion, baby, when I push it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Nice.
Well, listen, before
Well,
before we close out here, anything else? I'm gonna put links to all of the different streaming platforms, all of your music, your website, and then there's a beautiful little documentary that was made about
oh
you.
yeah.
and I'm going to put a link to that and your
Yeah, yeah,
YouTube channel. But if anybody wants to reach out, they'll be able to get a hold of you that way. But any final
yeah,
words,
yeah.
anything else you want to throw out to the ether?
Man, just to for everybody out there, just to like take time in nature and take time to listen and be quiet and trust yourself. And it's easier said than done. It's hard. It's very, very hard. And I think life is designed to be this way. You know what I mean? I think we're here to evolve and to learn. So don't be afraid of the challenges. They're little secrets, you know.
Mm,
To find they're your little unique doorways, you know. But it takes a lot of work and to develop your confidence, you know, to but I could say, you know, I'm years later, I'm 54 and I'm finally feeling a little more confident. You know, like and you like my work or whatever, but that was just me trying to work through stuff, you know. But, you know, I would love for more people to feel the way I feel on a good day, you know.
yeah.
It does feel without any flaws or from anybody else, you know.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling. You know? I feel like the little man with the cone hat in tune with the universe, you know.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me, Wes. And I appreciate the work you do and the depth work that you do. I've been enjoying watching your shows. And, you know, I really appreciate you seeing me the way that you do and articulating it was me to be myself, you know. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Dustin, we'll do it again. This isn't the last time, man. To
Yes,
the
indeed.
future and whatever the
Yeah.
future holds. But thank you again for everything, brother. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming
Thank you,
on.
Wes. I'll give you a call soon. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, man. Take care.